Hey guys, Level Cap here, and welcome to the weekly news series This Week in Gaming. Console owners and people excited about VR have a lot to think about this week. If you're interested in a particular news story, click its title to skip to it. Mobile users see the description for timestamps. First up, Sony announced their upcoming PlayStation VR system for the PS4. Priced at an aggressive $399, it's really the first VR headset for the average Joe, requiring a breakout box to interpolate the PS4's 60 FPS output to 90 or 120 FPS. PlayStation VR might not be the premium VR experience hardcore gamers are looking for, but it should still be good enough for most people. The PlayStation Eye camera is required to use the headset, but it's not included in the base price. It also works with the Move controllers, but they're considered optional as the DualShock controller works with the headset. Sony may have a leg up in the virtual reality department since they can probably sell their headset at a loss at $400, but keep the VR experience on the PS4, meaning that if it takes off, well, people have got to buy a PS4, they've got to buy games on the PS4, they can afford to take a loss on the hardware sales and make it up in the software sales or growing their user base. Also, AMD is now putting their foot in the VR arena with an all-in-one VR system called the Sulon Q. AMD hasn't said much about how the system works other than it's going to include the hardware to store and play games all in one unit in a tether-free experience. It's also designed to do augmented reality things, but there are no specifics about that yet. For VR, the screen is 1440p and powered by AMD FX 8800P processor with the Radeon R7 graphics. Being the first all-in-one VR system that doesn't use a phone, it'll be interesting to see where AMD goes with this technology, as it solves the common complaint of needing a decent gaming PC or console to get into the VR experience. And the last bit of VR news this week is Valve's upcoming free game, The Lab. Serving as a collection of 12 mini-games, The Lab looks to be mostly a tech demo made to show off some of the basic uses for VR in games. The mini-games are getting a lot of praise and show that Valve has what it takes to make compelling and unique games, despite how long it's been since their last release. And speaking of new games, Sniper Elite 4 is shaping up to be a better game than its predecessors. While only in pre-alpha at this point, the game features levels that are 3 times larger at a minimum than Sniper Elite 3. Major improvements include revamped movement and climbing mechanics to give players more control over both their character and how they traverse the levels. While Sniper Elite has always seemed like somewhat of a well-polished B title, this new entry in the series could prove to be the one that raises the bar and offers a truly original experience. In console news, Microsoft have announced that developers can make their Xbox One games cross-network with PC players, with Rocket League being the first game to do so. Now, Rocket League does make a perfect candidate for this, as many PC players prefer to play with a console controllers rather than a keyboard and mouse, but when it comes to other titles like shooters, you might run into a few problems of keyboard and mouse warriors going up against controller warriors. It'll definitely be interesting to see if developers take advantage of this when it comes to other gaming genres. Now, last week I reported on The Calling hitting early access, and while reviews for that game have been very favorable, it seems like Ark's free-to-play arena spinoff Survival of the Fittest isn't doing so well, citing performance issues and confusion as to why the developers have split their team to create a standalone title. Most user reviews seem unhappy with the release. Much like H1Z1's Split, this is kind of an odd move for the developers. As these games are developed, new features are added and others are refined, which is a huge impact on how people play. What makes sense now for an early access title could be widely different when it's finished. Hopefully these splits don't distract the developers from what makes their original titles worthwhile. While Killing Floor 2's early access offering hasn't been progressing as quickly as some players would like, its next update looks to be pretty substantial. Bringing a variety of new things to the game, the next update will also include a PvP game mode. Pitting zombies against humans, the game mode will be a 6v6 fight and survival with 11 playable zombies and the chance to play as the zombie boss as well. On the Battlefield front, unfortunately, it looks like BF4 won't be getting any more content. David Zerlin confirmed via Twitter that at this point DICE doesn't have any plans to release new content for BF4 to the CTE. This doesn't explicitly rule out new content, but it's pretty much assumed to be the case, which means they're on to bigger and better things, potentially. Now, one game that looks to have plenty of content, Escape from Tarkov, have had a demo video drop of its in-game weapon modding system, and it's incredibly in-depth. Expected to release sometime this year, the game isn't as close to finished as you might hope, but that doesn't mean there isn't a lot of stuff already in the game. And lastly, System Shock Remastered gameplay was revealed at GDC this week, and it looks more like a total remake than anything else. Despite being one of the original pioneers of the FPS genre, System Shock is so technically outdated that many gamers have probably never bothered to play it. The remastered version looks incredibly modern, so hopefully it does the original justice. Now that does pretty much wrap it up for this week in gaming. There's a few other things that I released earlier on my channel this week. If you missed them, I have 2 hours of Star Wars Battlefront Outer Rim gameplay. There's a lot of new information in there on that DLC if you're curious. And I also have a full review on Tom Clancy's The Division, which I put a lot of time into, and I think it's a very good summary of the entire game. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.